it was scary because I didn't realize how much I had pent up over the week. And that has helped me in my current work. And after New York, returning back to Hong Kong, I literally put like this calendar event called Check It every other day, because I realized when I was in New York, I wasn't checking in with myself, as like weird as that sounds. And I realized, it would be helpful if I like checked in with myself more frequently. One word that popped into my mind is imposter syndrome, especially for the New York position. It was at a dream organization. And I remember the feelings of excitement and nervousness and just gratefulness for finally being there. Like it was, as Pyle knows and as some of my friends know, there's a lot of context behind and a lot of journey behind getting there. But when I got to the building early, was sitting outside, kind of reflecting and praying over my day, and I just felt just like what imposter syndrome is, and not worthy of being there, not up to par of being there. And I think that feeling, and that is like, it's often a lie that is like something we buy into, and it's very natural to feel. So even in situations now, like it doesn't completely go away, but my response to it, I feel like has been through practice. I've been able to respond to it more effectively. And now when I sense imposter syndrome creeping up, I'll remind myself of where is that feeling based off of? Like, what am I believing about myself? What am I believing about the situation for this mindset to come about, and to reevaluate, to affirm what is true about myself and about my worth. Like, is ultimately not from my work. Like, it is inherent. Yeah. Yeah, there was, as you said, like with each rotation, it feels like I'm starting a new job every few months because it's a different team. Each team has its own culture, its own expectations and people. And relating to this, like, I think with new beginnings and new situations, I have often this desire to, I think it's natural, like a lot of us, we want to give off a great first impression. But I noticed something in me that I was trying so hard to prove myself and to prove my worth, my value, and how good of how working of a professional I was. I had to do that again and again. And through something I learned from my first rotation, which was one of the most challenging ones, it was in audit, something that I had heard the stories about, but was still not fully prepared when I entered into that world. It was also my first one, and I came during peak season in January was when I started, so it was just challenge upon challenge. I studied international relations, international studies, and had no background in finance or auditing, so it was a very steep learning curve. And my seniors on the team, they were so stretched themselves that they didn't really have capacity to train up the new hires. So we were still met with like a certain level of expectation, but we weren't given the guidance or training to meet that. So it was a tricky situation to be in. One part was the workload and the expectations, and just being so fresh at this new, just in this new space. And then the other challenging component was the team culture, as well as something that, if any of you have heard from your friends or have worked at Hong Kong yourself, you might know that the work culture can be quite problematic. And that was a challenge that was probably more challenging to me than the first one I mentioned. And navigating that, I think, through different rotations has been difficult, but with practice comes progress. And I think now with that, a good reminder for me and a helpful one that is much easier said than done, but is also something I'm working on, is recognizing that this is the deal, this is the situation and the culture I'm in. And I want to continue to be a diligent worker, and even though I can't control the response and this wide kind of like seeped in culture around me, I can still control my response and my decisions. And even though that's really difficult when everyone around you is maybe of a different mindset, it makes it harder to stand your ground. But with practice, I found it's really valuable for me to, both for myself, my health, and also I think I found when I do that, whether it's my seniors or like my fellow colleagues and junior colleagues, like they're like, oh, that's okay to do. And it's almost hopefully like empowering for them to step up for their own space and their own health. Still a work in progress, and something that has helped me that I learned from the position in New York that was very just a position that taught me a lot on one hand, but also one that I was not, how to phrase, like it was just beyond my capabilities and my capacity to handle. And I realized that just the how it maxed me out on weekends when I would finally take a day. I would take a day on Saturdays to just rest from it, because on Sundays I would catch up on everything I did not finish from the week. But I knew I needed that gap and that space to just breathe and recenter a bit. And I found myself Saturdays as I would journal and pray and reflect that there was a lot of emotion inside me that would come out as I expressed that, like just kind of put my thoughts on paper. And it was scary because I didn't realize how much I had pent up over the week. And that has helped me in my current work, and after New York, turning back to Hong Kong. I literally put like this calendar event called Check It every other day, because I realized when I was in New York, I wasn't checking in with myself, as like weird as that sounds. I was just like, as I was journaling on Saturday, realizing, oh my gosh, I have so much pent up like angst and anxiety, sometimes sadness, just like emotions that are kind of hard to name. And I realized, it would be helpful if I like checked in with myself more frequently. So sometimes I just do a 1-word check-in, like what's one word of how I'm feeling today. Sometimes it's like a great word, like grateful. And sometimes it's like fridge, like the fridge is broken today. So like fridge has been on my mind. And then I tried to do, like after the 1 word, I try to think about what's like one thing I can do that might like help me from this. So if the word is something like tired, I'll be like, maybe it's a better idea if I sleep earlier tonight. It's quite simple, but it's helped me. Just like checking in with myself has helped me feel more grounded. And there's rarely like that, because when you let emotion build, it doesn't just go away. Like it will overflow and it will run over. So relating to the check-in piece of, I don't want to call it advice, because I feel like I'm still like learning so much from this. But another thing that I've been something that's been like on my mind also is just having an outlet, so for me, that's praying, that's writing, and painting. But for others, for you, it might look different. I think it's so important, as basic as it sounds, to have just a medium or just something where you are able to like get out those emotions and get out what you're feeling, whether that's talking to a close friend or going on a run. I think please don't keep like the angst and the emotions you're feeling in, because like we're not meant to do that. It's much healthier to share what's on your mind with like a trusted person or an outlet that really helps you.
Wow. Honestly, I actually am going to do that check-in thing. That sounds so, I don't do that, and you're right, because I was telling you, right, this week I was working till midnight and I stopped, and I'm supposed to go to bed because then I have to wake up early in the morning and start again. And you're right, like I had all this energy. Like it was just like this, I couldn't sleep because then I was anxious about the next day, and I'm like, oh, it's late, and like I'm trying to sleep and then I can't sleep. And it was just like this. I think I wish I checked in with myself more, at least like that day. And I love that thing about putting in a word, and then because then it's like simplifying. You're not thinking, because we tend to overthink and think through, oh, I have to do this and that. Like, okay, how are you? And at that moment, that was the word. Like, okay, what can I do to like fix that? I love that.
Yes. I can't know where I got it from, but I think it's like a mix of friends and things. But shout out to
that. Wow. Yeah. I think.
And that made me think of something else, Kyle. I was talking to a good friend lately, and how we were discussing just how burnout at work has become kind of a normal thing, and how we're both people who kind of, I think, set pretty high expectations for ourselves, and really go ham every day at work. Which, from one perspective, it's not a bad thing. Like you're really all in, which is a great thing. But sometimes a good thing can become like a destructive thing, and that it's great to give 100%, but sometimes we're actually giving our 300%, and we're really running on empty. And so my friend and I were discussing this idea of the importance of leaving margin in our days. And when I first heard this, it was the analogy and like the source of where the person sharing was drawing this from was like how there was, when just like if you go way back when people still farm, but like this is specific to like specific guidance to like people farm land, to not reap to the ends of their fields, to leave the ends of like if you like envision a square, just not go to the ends and leave like the outer border for at that time, like the foreigners, people who could not afford to eat, so that they could come and the food. And that was kind of the guidance and commandment for those people who were reaping the fields. And then the person was drawing the analogy to current day us, in a lot of us in like 9 to 5 in corporate world jobs. And they were sharing like, this is not something we're used to hearing, but we don't really leave margin nowadays. We kind of max ourselves out at work. When we come back to our homes, or like, I remember in New York when I was coming back to my apartment, as lovely as my apartmates were, there were many days when I came back and I was like, I really hope nobody's home, because I have no capacity to talk to anyone. I just want to cook in silence and like go to bed. And there are days like that, that's normal, but I realized it was destructive in that I had consecutive and like almost just in season, right? Where that is just the norm every day. And it's not good when we max ourselves out and we have no capacity left for our loved ones or ourselves. So I'm learning to, it's hard though. Like it's not really like something, I don't really have concrete things that I do and it's difficult to navigate, but I try to, along with the check-in thing, like throughout the day, just try to pace myself and like leave some buffer rooms. So when I'm off work, I have some mental energy remaining, like some just space remaining that I can continue to, because work isn't everything. As important as it is, it's not. Finding too much worth from work. I think it's great that we find satisfaction from our work and meaning in our work, purpose. But from the past and even recently, it's very easy for me to fall too much in that and derive like an unhealthy amount of self-worth from the quality of my work, the productivity of my work. And so that's something I'm continuously working on. Something that's helpful for me is just centering myself at the beginning of each day. And faith is a big part of my life. So I will remind myself like truths and that my identity in Christ is like already 100%. I don't need work is like hopefully through my work I can be light and like bring glory to Christ. But that's work isn't the one that's giving me value. It's just something that I have the opportunity to do. And in addition to the worth reminder and journey, I think also it's easy if you've been working for a bit, and we're still so young, right? But sometimes it's easy to feel jaded, like the day ins and day outs, and sometimes difficult people or just really plain and not so exciting projects and tasks we have to do as more entry level professionals. Sometimes life is just not so exciting. And I think a reminder recently that I got is just to continue to be present and intentional in those mundane things and in the ordinary things. Because this is a quote I heard that really resonated with me, like how you do small things reflect how you do larger things and more exciting things. Just the practice and how you are with less like spotlighty tasks and sometimes really boring and meaningless things, but I think that shows a lot of your heart and it's great practice. And for me, like also the way I treat my colleagues and people, I think, I often take things for granted. It's just like, oh, it's just work. But something that I'd like to improve on for my last rotation, as well as going forward, is just to remind myself of being present and that my response, which I can control, does have an effect on the people around me and the work I do, even if it's small and boring work. So I think it's a good challenge for myself.
That is such a good perspective. Like, I know you're coming into work and like when you first start and you're like, wow, do I have to like, you think of what you're doing and you're like, this is like, what is this? Like I did a whole degree. Like, why am I doing this? And you're right, changing your mindset as to, okay, like this is going to be useful. Like it has to start somewhere. Someone has to do this. And, I think it's interesting, like changing the mundane. And if you change your like mindset to like, okay, I have this task, I'm going to do it exceptionally well, even if it's something that's like you said, mundane. And at the end of the day, it's going to be used or may not be used, but then you'll feel like still good that like changing that switch of instead of sulking about it, like, okay, I'm gonna do a good job with it.
Yeah, just last week was reminded of this point of being intentional with small and ordinary things. And another interesting point from that was imagine what would happen if we got everything we wanted or wished for or paid for instantly. Like that promotion or that job at that company, that person as our friend or significant other, like we would not be ready for those things. Like it would just be, it's kind of scary to think, like instant gratification. What if that happened with everything we ever wanted? Sometimes we need to go through that journey of starting at like a smaller position or whatever that looks like for you, because we're meant to learn what that place is going to teach us, or that person who enters our life is going to teach us before that big thing. And sometimes that big thing is what we initially wanted, and sometimes when we walk through that season it's not. But I thought that was an interesting point, just like how I haven't really considered what would happen if everything I like wanted for was there instantly. I would probably be really just filled with pride and thinking this is all for me and my hard work, when I'm not ready to deal with that kind of platform or space. I think probably like remember to take it easy on yourself. And sometimes the best advice, like we know already. Sometimes the best advice is just not sexy and not very exciting sounding, but it is true. And once you walk through something, and if you're able to incorporate an advice, you'll know what I mean. Like from my own personal experience, I think oftentimes I ignore pieces of advice like duh, or like that's not applicable to my situation. But when I start to just take a step back and look at the situation I'm in and see what would be helpful, I think sometimes we know. And then when we are able to try and step and take what we know is true, but what we might not want to do, I guess that's my challenge to you. Like if that resonates, like a challenge for you to try what you know to be true, because we often underestimate that.
Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and comment with your own thoughts and experiences. If you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe to our channel at ReLyfe Videos. Let's rehumanize.